what we can see just from looking at the cover page is that despite the conversations in the budget about projected shortfalls, that Santa Barbara began this year with what it reports as being $116 million in unrestricted net assets, which under generally accepted accounting principles means $160 million of resources available for any legal purpose. So as a consequence, part of the question that comes up, which is if you have $116 million beginning of the year of available, why are you having such a crisis around your budget?
It finally came to our knowledge and understanding that there's got to be something going on here. It just doesn't make sense that you have a city that makes as much money as Santa Barbara does, and we found out, we started to look at the numbers, we saw how the police department personnel was being cut, but interestingly enough, all of these other sections of the city, the personnel were being increased. And so that disparity just doesn't make any sense. So that led us to start looking into the budget ourselves, looking at the CAFRs, just start getting our calculators out and start figuring it out. And then when we saw this huge disparity in what they were saying and what the numbers were saying, we then said, you know what, we need to have an expert here. We got to get somebody who we know is going to be able to have a lot more knowledge about it than we do.
That's quite a shocker. You know, the city's claiming they're $8-9 million in deficit for this year's budget, yet I think that they have an extra $118 million lying around, and they want to close a fire station. They want to cut back on staffing for the fire department. They want to cut back on staffing for the police officers. Wow.
It was a real eye-opener. In fact, I'd even characterize it as a bit of a shocker. I think the presentation I saw this morning and the realization that perhaps the system is not as transparent as it should be, or as transparent as the citizens might believe it to be. To find that there is in fact assets out there that appear to be in a position to be used by the city, I'm actually quite amazed that that we're being told that we're suffering from a significant deficit.
Where does $116 million come from?
Well, there are two general categories. There are the traditional governmental type services that are provided, and we won't go through the list, but there's roughly $32 million in those funds right now, unrestricted. For those which are business type activities, like the city's utilities, like its internal service funds, there are approximately $83 million. Those are resources which are identified in their comprehensive annual financial report as being available for any legal purpose. Well, I think that basically your comprehensive annual report, the CAFRs it's called, shows that you're actually quite robust financially, and that's reflected in your bond ratings. And from that standpoint, I don't know why we should overreact to what might be someone's best guesses about the future when we have substantial resources on hand to meet the challenge.